Welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast, where we talk about self-care strategies for creatives, empaths, and highly sensitive people. I'm your host, Stefani Fryzel, aka Dylan. I'm an artist, a songwriter, and an author. And today I have a very special guest, and we talk all things self-care along the creative journey. I'm so glad you're here. 'Cause I know I'm right. Bonnie Mckee has written 10 number one hit songs with some of the world's biggest pop stars, including Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Kesha, Kelly Clarkson, Jason Derulo, Christina Aguilera, Carly Rae Jepsen, Baby Rexha, Cher, and more. She co-wrote the Diamond certified hit songs California Girls and Roar with Katy Perry, garnering a Grammy Award nomination in the category of Song of the Year. Along the way, she amplified her solo career, packing houses on tour across the country, playing venues such as the Hollywood Bowl and festival stages at Coachella. Her 2015 Bombastic EP emerged as a cult favorite, garnering over 20 major film and TV placements. In addition, in 2020, Bonnie became an award-winning filmmaker for writing, producing, directing, and starring in the short film April Kills the Vibe. Now she is finally inviting everyone into her world with her 2024 full-length offering, Hot City. Please welcome my next guest, Bonnie Mckee.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's just start with a warm-up question, and maybe you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your story and how you started in music.
Yeah, my name is Bonnie Mckee. I am a singer, songwriter, director, actor. I kind of do it all. But I'm primarily known for my songwriting and my artist project. I started out getting a record deal when I was 16, moved to LA, fell on my face, started writing songs for other people, and kind of hit the jackpot accidentally. And I've been working on my artist project stuff since then, and simultaneously still being a songwriter.
I love how you're like, I fell on my face, and it's just like part of the story, right? Like,
it's a rite of passage. It really is.
I've learned a little bit more about your story as we've gotten to know each other, and there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows, and so yeah. I want to just jump straight into it. Obviously, you were part of the book, and it's all about self-care and being an artist yourself, and obviously a jack of all trades. Maybe you could speak to a little bit about all the things that you've struggled with on the journey: anxiety, depression, all of those things, and what that's looked like for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I came into the game already someone that with a lot of experience with anxiety and depression, and feeling other, and also problems with addiction. And so, coming into such a cutthroat business can definitely exacerbate all of those things. And it's taken a lot of therapy and, at times medication and, self-reflecting and spirituality to kind of find my way and not let that run my life, because it did for a long time.
So when you first started, like you said, you've struggled with addiction, and I know that getting sober is a big piece of your story. When you first started, there was the first, not being sober, and then you transitioned into being sober. So maybe you could speak a little bit to what that looked like for you in the beginning and how you transitioned over.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I came in already an alcoholic, not really knowing that I was yet. Thinking that was cool and that I was going to be a hot mess forever and that I would be like the old lady at the party doing coke and being wild. The party kind of ended where it stopped being fun. Although I don't know that it was ever really fun. Of course, there were fun moments, but I think that a lot of it was really just to not feel anymore. Or if I was numb in my day-to-day to feel something. It was always kind of to manage my anxiety and depression. And it's not really a great tool for that. And then I tried on my own for a long time to get sober. I tried only drinking beer and wine. I tried only drinking on the weekends, only special occasions, only, a 2-drink maximum, whatever. And I realized after years of that, or just I'm just going to take a break. I'm just going to go on a cleanse, whatever it is. And I realized after years of that my way wasn't working. and that I always ended up in the same place. Even when I cut back, it's just really hard to do controlled drinking, as I call it. So once I was really scared to get sober because I was afraid I was not going to be creative anymore. I was afraid I was going to be boring. I was afraid I was going to, lose my spark. And I absolutely didn't. For years I wrote about all of my pain and distress and all of the things that came from, being an addict and being a depressed and anxious person. And I was like, well, what am I going to write about now? And
right.
But
there's no more inspiration.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I have a lifetime's worth of trauma to write about. There's always a well of darkness that I can tap into. I don't have to live that day to day to reap the benefits from it and to, as a songwriter, understand another person's struggle. So I have a whole encyclopedia of that kind of information and emotional experience. So I don't need to live it to write about it.
Right, exactly. It kind of reminds me of this, like, I used to feel that way, like, right before I got married, or like, in the beginning, I was like dating all these terrible boyfriends. And I was like, that was my, material for my songs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what happens when I get married and it works out? What am I going to write about then? And it's just like, well, turns out you still have like so much inspiration. And like, I ended up writing like an album about being married and what those problems are like. And so it's like, whatever it is that you're actually afraid of being taken away, that like, it actually ends up being part of your story and adding to the inspiration long term. So it's interesting that you did say that, like, before you got sober, that you were afraid that it was going to take away your spark and, And so how do you think your creative process changed after getting sober?
I think that at that point, I had already had some success, and I had kind of figured out my process as far as like having to write under the gun, having to show up and have ideas and whatever. And the difference was that I was really able to be a finisher. I could show up. Look, I'm still late. I'm always late. But I could show up for people. I could know that I did my best and that I didn't phone it in. And I don't know, it was a lot easier to get my work done when I wasn't hungover and when I wasn't, overthinking all of the social aspects, or, just waking up and being like, what did I say? Did I embarrass myself in an industry party? Did I text somebody weird that I shouldn't have? It gave me a lot of peace of mind of just knowing that, like, whatever decisions I made or whatever actions I made were, I couldn't blame it on alcohol anymore. Like, so I kind of had a leg up because it's already really stressful being in this industry on a social level, and a political level, and so not having that, like, that kind of wild card of like anything could happen because I'm not at the wheel. I'm not driving.
Right.
It gave me a lot more.
Took it away, right?
Yeah. It gave me a lot more confidence in that, where I knew who I was and what I was doing and why I was there and what I said and what I did,
Right. You're like, I can recall what happened because I remember every piece of it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned before that you're a perfectionist, like almost to the point of like what you said, like crippling anxiety. Like, do you think that that's, helped you in some ways in terms of like having big success with your songs, or has it hurt you in ways, or maybe both? I don't know. What does that look like for you being a perfectionist?
I think both. I think that my perfectionism is what contributed to my success, because I believe that, going that extra 10, 15, 20% at the end, once you're like, okay, it's done. Like, I feel like doing that extra polishing and making sure that every lyric is perfect and making sure that I feel like that is the difference between a good song and a great song.
Right. Of course.
And so I think it's worth it to push, but also, on my own stuff, because I am independent, I have, all the time in the world, and it can definitely slow me down, where I'm just like, is it done though? Is it finished? Is it good enough? And, I drive myself crazy because I edit all my own music videos and everything. And like, I really go down the rabbit hole with that. And I'm always happy with the final result when I'm the one in charge.
Right.
But it definitely, like, my health suffers, when I start editing. I sit in the same place for weeks on end. I forget to eat. I forget to drink water. I don't sleep. And then next thing I know, I've just like, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm not healthy. I'm not a healthy person.
Right. You're like, I'm so like fixated on like making this perfect. But then, at the cost of what? At the cost of you, right? At the cost of your health and stuff. So it's interesting. It sounds like perfectionism like paid off for you in the sense of like, okay, taking the song from like 90% being done and like that last 10% was what like knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it's like without like a specific, almost like a deadline or like a cutoff point for yourself. So you're like, okay, well, unless I, give myself that deadline for my music video, like where's the line of like when this is not okay? when is perfectionism not okay?
Exactly. Well, I've heard David Bowie was quoted. He may have been quoting like Da Vinci or something. I don't know. But at some point, David Bowie said like art is never finished. It's abandoned. And that's exactly how I feel, where it's just like, I have to accept that I'm probably never going to be satisfied with anything that I do. And I'm just going to have to let go, let God,
Right.
Like, okay, yeah. Like I did my due diligence. I know that I did the best that I could, and I have to just let it be what it is. And also, recognizing and appreciating the imperfections in art. Because like I do like really clean, perfect shit, but it doesn't, sometimes that's not what's best for the song. Sometimes it's like, you just let it be what it is,
I love that quote. That's a great quote. You mentioned something about like writer's block and that you had experienced writer's block. And I'm curious if that was like after success, before success, all throughout the career. And, you even considered taking a year off because it was like too painful to like sit down and write songs. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, definitely. I for sure had writer's block in many different forms. I mean, sometimes it's just avoidance, where I just am like, I can't get myself to sit down and do it. Or I'm just like, I'll find anything else to do. I'll be organizing my sock drawer before I'll want to sit down and write. Sometimes it's like the pressure is too high. Like I just 6 months ago or whatever was called in to do something big. The artist was not there. So I was just kind of left to my own devices. Sat down in an expensive studio that someone else was paying for me. It was supposed to be, aiming for the first single for this big artist. And I just was like, I got nothing. It's like,
right.
And it was just like a super tight deadline. And I was like, I failed. I flopped.
Right. Totally failed. Failure.
Yeah. And what happens. And then sometimes if I, I'll get on a run where I do like a bunch of great stuff in a batch. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on a roll. And then I'll have a day where I'm like, and it's over. And I have to just done. Be like, okay, like I've tapped out. I have to go refill the well, I have to go refill my cup because like, and also there were years where I would, where I was just like in the studio every single day. And it's like, you have to live your life a little to have something to write about. Because like when you're looking at the same four walls every single day, it's like not, and you're seeing the same people, you don't have nothing new to write about. So you have to go live your life so you have something to write about.
Something to say. Exactly. It kind of it gives me a throwback because I remember when I was little, like my dad used to come into my room. He's like, are you practicing your singing? Are you whatever? And at the time I was like, man, I've been locking myself in this basement rehearsing. And I'm like, I need something to write about. I need to go date a guy, get my heart broken, like get some, then I'm on fire and I have something to say. So it's interesting. You said something about just, refilling your well and living your life. So what does that look like for you? Like refilling the well?
I think it's like not trying for a second. It's just stepping away. I get a lot of inspiration from art and film. I find that like going to the movies is helpful for me, or going into social situations that aren't comfortable. If I go to a party of someone that I don't know very well, or whatever it is, like, or being in kind of an intimate setting, even not a party, but just like, oh, like we're just hanging. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know these people. Let's go see what happens. That I get inspiration because I'm like, oh, I'm outside of my comfort zone,
What's going to happen next? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I find that to be helpful for sure. But I think the key, I mean, even if it's just me sitting around staring out the window, doing nothing for a minute. It's just like giving my brain a break, you know?
Right.
Because like when you're trying and trying and trying, then it turns into forcing. And like if you're
and
forcing
then your energy is
it,
in a different place.
Exactly.
It's in a different place. Yeah. You mentioned that you're very visual, and that like the daydreaming aspect has been like a humongous part of like your creative process, and that
Definitely.
like visuals inspire you, and you're into interior design and like all of that. So I think that's really interesting, because it's not just sounds that you're working with, but like it's a visual experience for you. And I feel like would you say that like that imagination piece has been like key for your songwriting?
Absolutely. And it's always been that way for me since I was first started writing songs. And even when I was a little kid, like fantasy and daydreaming is a huge part of my creative process, which is why I need a lot of time alone. Because when I'm with someone, I'm concerned about them. I'm listening to them. I'm aware of their energy. And so like it's important for me to have solo time to really decompress from being around everyone else's energy, and also just like give my brain space to like receive the messages from the universe, wherever those come from.
And aliens.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Whoever's sending them to me, I got to sit down and shut up for a second, you know?
Yeah.
But also traveling is really helpful too. Even if I just go and, stay in my friend's guest house or stay at a hotel or whatever it is, just like getting out of my environment is really helpful.
Yeah. Changing the environment. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like all of these things of impact you, like whether it's like other people's energy or your environment, like it's interesting what actually contributes to your creative process. And and you said that, you make film and you do all these different things. So I'm wondering, like, do you think those are all like part of it, that like you couldn't just do songwriting, but you have to, make films and do all these other things? Like,
yeah, I think that, as grateful as I am for the successes that I've had in the songwriting world, and that was a very important process for me, realizing that I could be successful without, like, behind the scenes. Because, I bought a house in the hills, and that is all from just my brain, just my intellectual property. And that was like a really important lesson for me as a woman in the industry, to realize that I don't always have to be the one, looking cute and doing a spin on camera,
Right. But
like,
my ideas are worth money, guys.
Yeah. But I think
this
that
brain is worth money.
Yeah. But I think that one of the things that was not fulfilling for me as just being behind the scenes was that I really had no say in the visual side of it. And that is such a huge part of my creative process. When I write a song, I really see a music video, or I don't know, my lyrics are very visual. And so when I don't have any say in what it looks like in the end, that can be kind of disappointing, or I feel just like, it doesn't feel finished.
Right. So would you say that piece of it is also part of the reason why like you're an independent artist? Like you're like the most hands-on person I've ever met. Like you're just like, I'm directing, I'm editing, I'm, doing everything from start to finish. And like, so like how important is that piece to you in terms of like control of your artist trajectory, control of the art, the final product, all of that stuff?
It's very important to a fault. I really struggle to delegate, or in my experience, delegating has not been successful. So maybe it's just that I haven't found the right partners. I have a few people in my life that I know that I can hand things to, and I can trust that they're going to come back the way that I see them. But it's hard. It's really difficult and a lot of times too, when it comes to delegating, I don't necessarily know what I want yet until I get my hands on it. So it's like I have to see the footage. I have to get in the space. I have to get on location. I have to, get in the booth and start, whatever it is. Like I need to get inside of it, and then I know what it's supposed to be. But when I'm just like, I don't know, I kind of want it to be this, and I give it to someone else, and I'm like, that's not it. And I don't know until I dive in. I got to get inside of it.
Right. Totally. I feel like that's like one of the biggest struggles too with just being an artist in general or like an independent artist is like there's so much of it falls on you. It falls on you. It's up to you to make decisions. You're the one in control. You're the one with the reins. So it's almost just like we're used to this position. So when we're having to let go of the reins, it's like foreign and you're like, wait, no, like, I don't want this ship to go somewhere I don't want it to go. Right. So,
and I think, I don't know, for me, I think it's like, I would rather be exhausted than have to put something out that I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like where it ended up, or this doesn't represent me. This isn't exactly what I wanted, and which is why I never sleep.
Right. Literally never sleep. You mentioned before that like, like you need like tons of alone time and all of this stuff. And I think I asked you this before, like, because you probably didn't know that you were an empath or a highly sensitive person in the beginning. And like, what did that like wake up phase look like for you? Were you like, you read a book about it and you're like, oh, this is what I am? Because that's how it was for me. I was just curious what that looked like for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that I kind of discovered that in some of my codependent relationships. Like when I started learning about codependency, is when I really was like, oh, right. Like I get real caught up in other people's problems. I got real caught up in being a captain save a bro or a captain save a hoe. And it's an escape. It's really like a form of procrastination in a way, where it's like, if I'm focused on someone else's problems, then I don't have to think about my own. But it goes a step beyond that. Like that's behavioral, right? And so I can correct that. And once I was aware of that, I was like, okay, if someone's telling me something and I feel like, oh, I know how to fix this, I have the answer. If you're not asking me for help, then it's none of my business,
Right, exactly.
But on the other hand, or furthermore, realizing that I am just very much affected by people's energies around me. I have to be a little more careful about protecting myself, and not that people mean, are malicious or even know that they're doing it. But sometimes it's like, I can't answer every single text every day. I can't pick up every phone call because I have a lot of people, because I'm a good listener. I am good at helping people, and I end up having nothing left for myself. And so I kind of have to set boundaries for like how much I can absorb other people's emotional baggage,
Right. And it's like that in songwriting sessions, and not just in songwriting sessions, but it's like that in networking events. And it's like that in maintaining any kind of relationship with anybody. And like, yeah, you kind of hit it head on with like, it almost talks about like, what is your bandwidth and like your capacity? Because it changes, right? You're like, sometimes you're like, okay, my bandwidth's pretty high. I can respond to these emails or texts or whatever. And then, so how do you gauge when it's like, okay, this is too far and I need more time for Bonnie? Like, are there like signs that you're like, yep, got to take a break?
Yeah. I mean, I generally am like a very easygoing person, and, I'm pretty happy in general. And I notice that I get irritable or I get overwhelmed, or I get indecisive because I just haven't had enough room in my brain to think about what I really want. And I also like forget, like, I don't know what are my feelings and what are other people's feelings. And so I have to like step away and be like, how do I actually feel about this? I don't know until I'm alone.
You've stepped away. Yeah. And you're like, I need to process what is mine and what is not. One thing I wanted to cover was imposter syndrome. And like, I know you've said that you've struggled with that in the past, and how you kind of coped with that piece of it.
Yeah. When I first had my hits with Katie, I was like, first of all, I had been shit out of luck for so many years and nothing ever worked. And so when California Girls went #1, like right away, I just kind of didn't even believe it. Where I was like, this isn't real. Like, because I had trained myself to not get my hopes up, because it was too painful to always be like, this is going to be the one. And then it doesn't happen. And I was just like, okay, just never get excited, never get your hopes up. And then when it finally started happening and people were congratulating me and stuff, I was like, it's not me. I mean, and to be fair, it wasn't just me. I didn't do that by myself. It takes a village.
Right.
But of course, I was in the room with the biggest producers and songwriters and pop star in the world at the time.
Right.
So like, of course, it was a hit. It does. It feels like cheating. But I think that after an album of those songs, and then Roar came out years later, and it was like, okay, well, this is like still working, but it was still like the same.
You're
team.
like,
so,
legit, yeah.
And so, but I think I had to have hits away from Katie and Max to really be like, okay, well, maybe I do have something to do with this. Maybe I did really contribute.
This is so fascinating to me because it's like it's clear that like without your contribution, nothing would have, you know what I mean? Like nothing would have, you know what I mean? Like, but it's funny how our brain is going to think like, oh, well, there was this, and this, like how easy it is to almost discredit ourselves when we do have success, and that's incredibly common. Mm-hmm. Like you would think that the best of the best of the best can wake up in the morning and be like, yeah. Totally. That, this is who I am because of XYZ. But I'm, like you said, like you still struggled with like, was I really part of this or not? Like,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think same thing with my artist stuff. It was like, American Girl was like a minor hit. It did pretty well. And then Bombastic had a lot of syncs, and, I've put out stuff that's done stuff, but I don't consider myself famous or a celebrity or anything like that. And so when I go in public and people recognize me, I'm like shocked. I'm like, oh my God. Like, I love it where I'm like, oh my God, because it's like, especially when you're independent, it's like you put stuff out and, it's not like back in the day where it would be like you're in a magazine or you're on TV and it was like an obvious fame thing. It's now like everything kind of just exists on social media, and like none of that feels real either. And so if I ever get recognized, I'm like, huh. So you mean when I'm sitting in my bedroom, like tweaking this little stupid TikTok edit and like freaking out, and then I post it, that like someone actually saw it?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. You're paying attention. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your project, because you're working on, you're releasing songs, and when is your album coming out, or EP, or?
Yeah, it'll be a full album. So the story of the album is that I wrote it and recorded it back when I was signed to Epic, when I put out American Girl. American Girl was the only song that actually came out from that batch of songs, but I wrote a whole album that never saw the light of day. And I toured it, and the fans loved it. And then I left the label. I kind of gave up on it. I abandoned it because it was like I didn't own the masters and there was nothing I could do. And it was super heartbreaking to kind of grieve that and break up with that album. But once I don't know, some time went by, and the fans in the forums and everything were still asking about these specific songs. Anything else that I would post, they would be like, we want Slay, we want Forever 21, we want Hot City.
Right.
And I was like, I'm still thinking about those songs too. So if you guys still want them, I still want them. And so I went and re-recorded them. And that, luckily, in my contract, there was nothing that said that I could not re-record the songs. And I did Bonnie's version. And now I own the masters. And it's been incredibly empowering and liberating. And it's been a lot of fun. So I'm grateful that, there is kind of a wave of nostalgia for early 2010s maximalist, sparkly pop music. So that is working to my advantage. But just in general, just personally, it's cathartic, and it feels like I finally get to close this chapter. Once hopefully I'll tour and stuff. Who knows what the future holds? But it's just
right.
nice
I was going to ask you. Yeah. I'm like, are you touring? Or so album comes out, touring? Yeah,
the album is coming out at the end of May, and I have a couple of shows lined up. I would love to do a proper tour, but as you know, being an independent artist, it is extremely expensive. And I've already spent a lot of money on this project, despite myself. I just am like, I don't want to. I don't want to look back and be like, damn, I wish I did that. So I'm just kind of in a place where I'm like, fuck it. This is what I want to do. This is what I love to do. I'm just going to do it and gamble on myself. And I may never make any of that money back. I have no idea, but I can tell you that I'm really enjoying myself. And to me, that is
you're like, it makes me happy.
Yeah. And like, that kind of is my idea of success, is just like knowing that I'm doing what I love, and I can look back and be proud of what I did, So I would love to tour, but we'll see.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you just totally like reframed success in general. You're just like, as long as I'm happy and doing what I love, like that's success, period. Like,
I mean, honestly, like, because a lot of people just aren't happy and hate their jobs and whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm winning because I love what I do. And also like, I kind of had to reframe my idea of success, because my idea of success when I first came to LA was like, be number one, be the star, be Madonna. And then when it didn't happen, it was like so crushing that I was like, this is not sustainable. And I need to like rethink what exactly my idea of success is. And this is something that I'm capable of doing, which is loving what I do.
right. Exactly. Exactly. This is just my personal question because I'm super curious about it. Like, are you doing more like film stuff? Like, is that like part of your like goal in the future? Like more film, more movies, more all of that stuff? Me personally, I'm just super curious.
Absolutely. And, that's why I have been doing so many music videos and stuff. I mean, besides the fact that feels like it's completed for me, I really love being on set. That's really where I'm happiest. And I'm learning a lot. And I ultimately would like to do, I have like a deck and a whole concept and a pilot and stuff for a TV show that I would like to develop. I'm just like, it's really hard to be more than one thing at a time. So right now I'm in artist mode and I'm like, let me just like survive this album and get this out. And then I can focus on that again. But, it's also like, it's funny in the film world. Like when I made my short, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea who I'm supposed to give this to, if I co-write a script with someone, it's not split up the same way. If someone just gives me one idea, am I like, okay, do you get a piece of this? Like, I don't understand the film world at all.
Anything.
And so,
right.
And so it's funny, like, coming into an industry where I'm the new kid, because I haven't been the new kid in like 20 years. So it's cool to like come in and be like, oh, like best new filmmaker, and I'm like, oh shit, like, look at me, I'm new, I'm the new kid. It's kind of nice. And also that people are like, oh, they don't expect me to have all the answers. It's refreshing to like step into something new and be like, I'm eager to learn. Yeah, that's definitely like high priority for me, is to really kick that into gear.
That's amazing. I love that. And I relate to it so much because the book for me was totally new as well. And I was like, all I've known is music. And now I'm like, oh, here am I. I'm just like, books, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And like, that was really thrilling.
You did a fantastic job. You did a fantastic job.
You.
What an incredible project. Like,
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you, honestly. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. No, seriously, it means a lot to have you be part of it and, share your perspective and, all the life lessons that you've collected over the years, and being able to pass that on. Like, it's a big deal to be able to see that in a book. So, all right, last shorty question. What is one piece of advice you give your younger self? Like baby Bonnie,
baby Bonnie,
just starting out on her journey. What do you tell baby Bonnie?
I would tell baby Bonnie not to make success your higher power, because you don't have control over whether or not other people like your art, and that doesn't define your value as a person.
Love that. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfection. Well, this was super fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And we're looking forward to your album, your tour, your movies, all of the above. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
'Cause I know I'm ready.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. For more self-care strategies, check out my book, Self-Care for the Creative. And if you're an up-and-coming artist, songwriter, or music producer, come join us at the Songwriter Series. It's an online platform that offers one-to-one music mentorship from hit songwriters. I also curate a quarterly music industry panel to help people break into the music industry and get in the mix. For more info on all my events, visit stefanifryzel.com or just email me at info@stefanifryzel.com. If you're loving the podcast, please like, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, leave us a review. Your support is super appreciated. And don't forget, self-care is always within reach, and your greatest masterpiece will always be you.